And there you are. I'd like to welcome you to this development activities meeting, special community forum. We hold these meetings when they're required by the city of Pittsburgh, Department of City Planning. Primarily, we are the host for this event. And essentially what we do is make sure that people get an opportunity to participate. We introduce our neighborhood planner and we have our developers speak, and then we have an open session. Please be courteous at all times. Try not to repeat yourselves. I will at the appropriate time read questions that are entered into the chat if that's what way that you prefer to ask your questions. And it actually makes it pretty efficient. So I've turned on the recording. Thomas Scharf is our neighborhood partner with the city of Pittsburgh. He provides assistance regarding activities that we're considering and activities that developers and homeowners are considering. Please. There we go. An enviable task or unenviable task of Thomas's is that, and primarily, or one of the things that he gets to do is he gets to discuss each of the development activity meetings in the entire Hilltop area. And I just asked him today how many he had done this week, and a rarity, this is the first one. So he's a very busy gentleman. And that is my introduction to him. So Thomas, I'm going to stop sharing the screen and please proceed.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Hope you're staying cool amidst the heat and staying dry. My name is Thomas Scharf, as Gordon said. So I serve as the neighborhood planner for Mount Washington, Duquesne Heights, Hilltop neighborhoods, South Hills, many of the areas in the West End, and other areas in the western southern parts of Pittsburgh. So I'm sharing here. Hopefully you can see my screen. Is that coming through? Okay, I think. The development activities meeting. Is that good? Gordon, are you seeing that?
Yes, it's coming through okay, Tom.
Thank you, Jay. So let's give a brief introduction. This is a development activities meeting tonight. It's one of multiple for the Duquesne Heights neighborhood. This one specifically focuses on Laurel communities and the development that the applicants will present. Just some background on development activities meetings. They're part of the registered community organization program that was passed with legislation some years back by City Council. The role of RCOs, registered community organizations, are to serve as an organization that works with the community in their specific neighborhood. So in this case, Mount Washington CDC serves as an RCO for Duquesne Heights as well as Mount Washington, and they play a formal role in the planning processes when there's development of a certain scale or size or above a certain threshold. So development activities meeting is a space co-hosted by the RCO and with city planning, where there can be conversations and the community can have a chance to learn about significant developments and then ask questions, get answers. So there's some specific development thresholds. So when the applicants meet those, and they also have to go to a public hearing. So that could be a hearing with the zoning board, a hearing with the planning commission, hearing with the art commission or historic review commission. When those are met, then there's a DAM or DAM, development activities meeting. And that happens at least 30 days prior to the public hearing. So development thresholds that are relevant for dams include this here on the screen. So if it's a significant new or expanded structure of 2,400 square feet or more, 4 or more new residential units, newer enlarged parking areas of 10 or more stalls, when there's use variances, also when there's project development plans, and then many of these other instances here. But the ones I especially called out, like the square footage, the amount of residential units, the parking, significant new parking areas, project development plans, those match with what I understand to be what the applicants will present tonight. And so that is also going to be go into a public hearing, which applicants will share more about, but I understand is to be planning commission at least. And so that kind of triggered this development activities meeting. This is a space for people to share comments, questions, but also there is an opportunity for at least the 30 days or more following this meeting you can write directly to the planning commission staff to provide testimony. You can also attend the planning commission meeting in the future. So here's some information about how to follow planning commission online, their website, where you can get notices about those when there are the agendas and planning commission hearings. The email, which is planningcommission@pittsburghpa.gov. Email testimony is accepted until the business day before the meeting at noon. And then you can also mail snail mail letter testimony in written form to 200 Ross Street, 4th floor, Pittsburgh, PA 15219. And that snail mail testimony must be received by 2 business days before the meeting. The other way to provide comment is as I mentioned, testifying directly at the planning commission meeting. So that would be joining the Zoom meeting directly on kind of through the computer application or by phone, using the raise hand function to request to speak and being called on to speak during a specific agenda item. And so if you do join by phone, you can use *9 to raise your hand. So that's for public comment to planning commission. Again, that would be, if assuming that this project were to go forward to that stage, it would be at some point in the future, at either 30 days or more in the future. And then if there were to be any zoning board of adjustment hearings, then here's some information about that. You can follow that at pittsburghpa.gov/DCP/ZBA. I also include the link here for where you can get notices about ZBA hearings to provide public comment for the ZBA. They recommend especially just testifying at the actual ZBA hearing and getting on their testimony list by emailing them at zoningboard@pittsburghpa.gov to ensure you have time reserved. So similar to the planning commission, you can join the meeting, use the raise hand function at the meeting to speak, request to speak. And once the item comes up, then you would speak. So the others, I have some other slides here for Art Commission, Historic Review Commission. I don't believe those will apply in this case relative to this specific development tonight. So I'll kind of, for time purposes, zoom through those. But those are also online at pittsburghpa.gov/DCP/AC for Art Commission and pittsburghpa.gov/DCP/HRC if you want information for Historic Review Commission. These are some links to city planning's kind of social, where you can find us on social media. So again, as Gordon shared, this space will have a chance for the presentation. And Gordon is hosting the Zoom itself. So if there are kind of technical questions with accessing the chat or how to ask questions, we'll defer to Gordon, especially to assist on that. My role will be primarily helping moderate as needed and then taking notes. I'll be taking notes for a staff report that will get published online that will capture the kind of the summary of the key concerns and questions, key comments, and any, whether positive or negative, everything that gets captured there. And then we also take notes of kind of what the presenters presented. So there's a chance too for folks that couldn't come to also look to that. And then, as I mentioned, to other opportunities to provide feedback directly to the board and commission that the applicants will be presented in front of. So with that, I will pass it back to Gordon.
Well, thank you very much, Tom. Another explanation of the dam process, which I'm sure a number of people here have not heard before. So thanks again. But it's now time for the presentation by the developers. And I believe I'm going to just introduce Jeff Campbell, who is the architect for this project. And Jeff, please take it away.
Great, thanks, Gordon. I think you can see my screen. Okay, great. So I'll introduce the project team, and we can go through introductions here in a second. We've got Marty Gillespie is joining us from Laurel Communities. He's the developer of the project. I'm also joined by Rocco Magrino from PVE. Rocco's done all the civil engineering and a lot of the site investigations that we'll share today. And then actually we also got John Kamen from Goldberg, Kamen and Garvin, who's acting as legal counsel if there's any questions that go down that route. Before we introduce ourselves, I have 12 slides here total. But just wanted to talk about, Thomas did that great introduction to the DAM process. Just wanted to give a quick overview of kind of where we were and what we've done to date. So far, back in January, we actually submitted some designs and some concepts here for the site to the zoning review. At the same time, we also met with PWSA, so the Water and Sewer Authority, to kind of review any outstanding questions that there might be around all the utilities on the site. March, we got city zoning comments back. In April, met with Department of Mobility and Infrastructure, or DOMI, for those of you that know it. They typically handle curb cuts, traffic, all the infrastructure type issues that we have. We also performed some geotechnical borings, so I'll go into that a little bit later on. But we did have really looked at the site and what's underground and under the site as well for this project. In May, we met with Gordon and the MWCDC development group to kind of review the concept. At that point, they recommended that we come to the community, so that that was something that we started to schedule. And since then, we've also met with the Allegheny County Conservation District. This is typically dealing with stormwater and runoff issues, that type of thing. So right now, July 28th, we're having a community meeting, and then the intent is to go to Planning Commission. We do still have a couple processes that we need to go through before we're there, including there's a formal design review by the city. But we wanted to share where we were now before we got to that stage. So that's where we are in the project, or where we are on the overall development schedule. Marty, do you want to maybe talk about yourself and introduce Laurel?
Yep. Thanks, Jeff. So Laurel Communities, we're a residential builder, developer. We do stuff all over Pittsburgh, Cranberry, Marshall Township, Pine Township, Peters Township, Upper St. Clair. We do a bunch of suburban stuff. We have apartments that we own. Walnut Capital manages all of our apartments that we own. And then the third business that we're involved in are these high-end townhome communities. So we built the townhomes at Bakery Village right next to the apartments out there in Shadyside. We also just completed the townhomes in the Strip District. If you've been down there recently, you'll see right behind the terminal building towards the river, the townhomes that have the rooftop terraces, that kind of thing. This is a streetscape from Riverfront, River Place Drive. So we have some other projects currently that we're working on in the city. We're excited about this one. Having a piece of ground on Grandview Avenue with unobstructed views is a great opportunity. So that's kind of a little bit of background on what we do.
Thanks, Marty. So, obviously, hopefully everybody's familiar with the site. Where we're looking right now is towards the very west end of Grandview Avenue. Currently, right now, we've got the Trimont, Grandview Point, Monterey Bay restaurant. There's an undeveloped parcel, and then there are 3 currently grassy areas, lots that are contiguous along Grandview Avenue. So these are the particular parcels that we're looking at. And then, of course, it terminates here, turning the corner in Republic and in Grandview Towers. One thing I did want to call attention to on this aerial were some of the heights of the buildings. Right now, Grandview Towers is 107 feet tall to this point. I bring that up because, as you'll see later on when we get into the zoning, there's a 40-foot height limit on the parcels that we're looking at. There's also the ability to go for a special exception with the city to create a 100-foot building. It's not an option that we're choosing to go down, but that is an option that the site could do, would be to create basically 100-foot tall buildings on a majority of the site, which is roughly the same height as at Grandview Towers. So that's the site in particular, and then in more specificity. Here we have the rivers to the north up here. So I've kind of rotated you on the site. The parcels that we're looking at are actually 23 parcels that are currently subdivided, but we'll be reconsolidating them as part of this plan. They actually create 4 non-contiguous areas. So there's one that basically runs from a private property, all the way down to Shaler Street. It's broken at Shaler Street. There's another parcel and then another private residence. And then the final 2 parcels are running up against the corner of Augusta, currently separated by a right-of-way here. So it is our intent, is since we own both sides of that right-of-way, to incorporate that as part of the project as well through a city process. Another thing to call attention to for anyone who's been on the site, is the topo and the grade here. I heard somebody reference it as a sledding hill at one point, which doesn't surprise me at all. Right now, the heights here, we've got on this first parcel, we go from an elevation of 1,118 down to 1,095. So, that's about 23 feet of slope across that particular site. And that's the one that we've been calling the flat one. So this one is 1117 to 1088. You can see that's about 29 feet of fall. And then the last one here is actually 33 feet of fall as you go across the corner here. And that's, that's Pittsburgh, first of all. But it's also just something that, we're extra sensitive to when we're dealing with stormwater and talking about drainage. We really wanted to make sure that we were protecting curb cuts and things like that as well. So we really wanted to make sure that we were working with that grade as much as we can. And so it was a big site consideration as we were laying stuff out. The other thing to call attention to on this graphic is the geotechnical that we did. So we actually performed 6 different borings throughout the site. So this is where they come onto site and actually drill a hole down, in some cases as deep as 45 feet, to see what's under there. We're very conscious that Mount Washington used to be Coal Hill. So we were, wanted to make sure that we were okay when it came to undermining, make sure we were okay from a general grade standpoint as well. We did find out that there is a lot of fill towards the middle of the site. So, if the grade itself goes something like this, then the grade underneath that kind of goes even further. And so it was a big consideration as we were laying out foundations and thinking about what we were doing for the building and for the buildings. The other thing that we were looking at were coal. We did find coal. We did not find any undermining. So there were a couple spots where there is still some coal existing under there, but nothing where it's been mined out and we'd be creating potentially a hazard as we're laying things on top. So that's the existing conditions. When we met with the development group, they also shared with us, the long history of Grandview Avenue and, the planning and all the energy that's gone in around here. So they had sent a number of reports going back to actually 1982. So in this 40 years of history, it's been a fascinating read to hear some of these, recommendations that come in a lot of these have been codified at this point. So I think the city has recognized through its zoning and through Mount Washington's efforts, how significant Grandview Avenue is. And, it really is a true resource to not just the neighborhood, but to the city and the region and at large. And we wanted to make sure that as we were laying stuff out, we were respecting that attention to Grandview Avenue. So I think you'll see in our site plan some of the moves we've made to do that. And then here we get into the nitty-gritty stuff. This is a zoning map of the area. So our parcels right now, again, are kind of highlighted here in the middle. And then this is the zoning map that you can get online from the city that actually talks about what you're allowed to do in each individual parcel. The blue area here, which covers the majority of our site, is what's called the public realm. So this is a Grandview public realm. This is sub-district E. The public realms are, there's just a few of them throughout the city, and this is basically where the city has recognized and given these special zoning status. The primary focus of which is that they do come to Planning Commission. So if we were proposing what we're proposing in other parts of the town and it wasn't in the public realm, there actually wouldn't be a Planning Commission process. It would just be approved by zoning. But because this is such a visible area, that was part of the process here. So you can see kind of in our breakdown, we are required to do that in the public realm district. We're proposing townhomes those are, not only are those permitted by right, but actually in the sub-district, only residential is permitted at all. So right now we feel we're doing everything by right there. And then just a couple other things to call attention to. There's what's called a setback in the front, which means that every building has to be 15 feet off of the street. And then the other one that I had mentioned earlier is that the building height is limited to 40 feet, although you can pursue a special exception for anything that's within 500 feet of an existing tall building. You can go up to 100 feet. That's what these two circles are, basically working off of Grandview Point and Grandview Towers. 500-foot circle would really permit anything up to 100 feet within those two areas. And then, just a minor note here, there are a couple parcels at the end that actually fall outside of that district. Those are under the R1A single unit attached high density. It has effectively the same height, the same setback. It just does not have that public process. So what we're proposing here would be consistent with this, but it actually isn't part of that review process. That's the zoning. And then the way we like to act, we always like to do our site forces. I think we've already talked about a number of these things, but this is typically a graphic that we do to try to understand how we're laying out the site and what are the important things. Here, it's pretty obvious what the main drivers are. Obviously the views are just tremendous in 180 degrees. Mentioned the sort of zoning heights, the slopes. Obviously, if you've got cross slopes, and really, the whole neighborhood kind of slopes down at this point. Another thing we're recognizing is the streets with street parking right now are shown in yellow. Right now, we know that Grandview Avenue does not have street parking, so we want to make sure we're respecting that as well. And so that led us to what we're proposing. So this is a 26-unit townhome, or 26 units of townhomes. As we mentioned, knowing Grandview is where the view is, we really wanted to make sure we were focusing as many buildings as we could to that facade, both to, because of, frankly, just marketability. I mean, that's where you really want to put your building, and that's the view sells. But then also just from an urban standpoint, this does create more of a streetscape, more of a pedestrian-oriented experience up there. In doing that, we also knew that we didn't want to put curb cuts. We didn't want to put garages or driveways along Grandview Avenue. We wanted to make those backloaded as much as we could. That was a little challenging because of this grade issue. You can imagine with the sloping in so many different directions as you come back, to get driveways to the back can be challenging. But we're pretty happy with where we ended up. We basically end up with 3 blocks. And each one of those blocks only has a single curb cut so anyone who's trying to get into any of these parking spaces, or into the back of their garages, would basically only come through that curb cut rather than having individual ones. It took a little bit of work, and Rocco and PV were able to really, work with the grade to figure out how to do it. We tried, I can't tell you how hard we tried to have a curb cut off of Augusta, but we just found the grade was too extreme there to be able to put it over there. So when we ended up doing this, we did have to put one curb cut along Grandview. It wasn't our first choice, but it was really a necessity. The only other option there would have been having curb cuts in each building to get into that front. So we do have one here. Some preliminary plans we had another building there, but we eliminated that building in order to get that curb cut to work. Another thing just to point out are the setbacks. I mentioned a 15-foot setback, so we are required to have at least 15 feet back from the street and the public right-of-way. So we are showing that, and you'll see when we get to the elevations what we plan on doing with that space as well. So then before we go into the elevations, the other thing we like to do is when we're laying out a building, we really want to try to make these buildings as contextual as possible. Marty, as he mentioned, and Laurel has a long experience with townhomes, and they've come up with some plans. They know what the market responds to, some nice, open, really contemporary plans that have been very successful. But we also want to make sure that they fit into the neighborhood. When we worked on, we were the architects for both projects Marty shared earlier. When we worked on those in the Strip District, there really aren't that many townhomes, but we recognized the prevalence of brick. Tried to pick up on window patterns that are out there, things like that, to make something that felt like it belonged in the Strip District. We're trying to do that here as well on Grandview. One of the challenges, though, is that Grandview is almost defined by sort of its eclectic nature, because these buildings have been developed over time. And frankly, I think because of some of the more high value real estate, they tend to be a little more stylistic. And so you end up getting a lot of different styles that are kind of all over the place. So we looked for some themes, tried to understand what we could do. We had a big study that really looked at a lot of these. I just picked a few excerpts here. We just picked a few excerpts to kind of share. For some reason, the one on the right keeps fading out, but I'll come back to that. But you can see, one thing that we kind of surprised at were a lot of towers, a lot of two-story bay windows. You get the kind of chamfered view there. That's something that popped up a lot. I suspect it might be because of the views, and you want, views in more than just straight out, but actually in 360 or 180 degree shots. Another thing was, terraces. Obviously, with those views, it's not like there's just one porch or one terrace. A lot of times there's multiple terraces in the area. Decent amounts of brick. For some reason, there's a lot of circles in windows. We didn't end up running with that, but I think that's more a sign of the times than anything else. And then, of course, lots of glass as well, with those views, and you want to maximize the lights. And then actually here's this is the building right on the corner of Republic, with another one right at the turret there. So that's what we kind of looked at. We thought about it a lot, tried to process it with the floor plans that we knew worked, some of the styles, things that we knew that the market would respond well to. And we're proposing these as elevations right now. So this is just a mix of the buildings. This is 6. I'll share just a larger view in a second here. The things that we wanted to focus on were making sure that the buildings still felt cohesive. They still felt part of the development, but at the same time, it wasn't cookie cutter, the exact same thing over and over again. So we really tried to work a lot with a mixture of materials, a mixture of, we use brick, we use different fiber cement. We wanted to make sure we had, the stepping of the buildings really helps break them up, create a little more individuality as well. We have different window patterns on different buildings, something we're playing with, and we'll continue to play with as we move forward. We also started to incorporate that chamfer, or that two-story bay tower, on the ends of the units, just to kind of, again, relate a little bit to the Grandview neighborhood, or to the Grandview street. But then also, kind of give the buildings themselves a little more difference. And then obviously, we are proposing some terraces. This elevation is actually from a higher view, so you're not going to see a lot of these. These will step back. I mean, you'll see the top of the roof line from the street level, but they do step back a little bit more, and we really end up with an elevation that's about 2.5 stories high. Lots of windows, obviously looking towards the view, and then we do incorporate some terraces and balconies, things like that as we go through. Another thing to point out is that those strip district project buildings that we did, in that case, we had a very dense urban street. We actually lifted the buildings up above that in order to kind of separate ourselves from that. Here, because of the grade, because of the rear parking, we've actually taken the buildings and sunk them down about half the floor. So the parking is actually, you come in through the rear of the building, and you're actually entering on the lowest floor, and then there's a small bonus room in that space. The front entry will actually come, up. You come elevated off of that and come in through some stairs. And that gives us a nice opportunity within that 15 feet here to kind of create a landscape space that could also act as a way to kind of bring light down into that lower floor. We are proposing some retaining walls to kind of, landscape retaining walls to kind of level off the site, and then just provide a nice opportunity to provide some landscaping. If you haven't been in the strip, I'd encourage you to stop by. The landscaping that Laurel has done there is really remarkable, and really adds a lot of character to the development. And then finally, what we're also proposing here, we're also just showing just an overall view. So taking that earlier shot and trying to understand what this would feel like along the street. And what we feel like is, we have something that is of a residential scale, very respectful of a lot of that history that happened along Grandview and a lot of those studies. Tried to, we're introducing street trees as part of this, and part of the city requirements as well. And we're very excited with the scale and how this is coming together. So I don't know, Marty, if I missed anything or if there's anything you'd like to add before we open it up for discussion.
No, just briefly, I think that's a good summary. Where we are in this process, and kind of like Jeff mentioned, the final designs are not done for these buildings, meaning the colors, that kind of thing. So what you're looking at tonight, just so everybody understands, is still very conceptual in nature. We do know the floor plans, as far as like where the bedrooms are going to be, bathrooms, this rooftop terrace. There's an opportunity here to do even more creativity type of things than we did in the strip and a bakery. So we're going to focus on that a little bit. But I think this gives a good representation of the massing. But the color schemes and things like that are still not developed. So what we do know is, like Jeff said, we're gonna have a combination of brick, hardy plank, some good contemporary, a lot of windows, things like that. So but I think in general, this at least represents what the development would look like. And again, like Jeff said, I think the one nice thing is this project and what we're proposing is per the zoning, use by right, exactly what is in the city ordinance. We don't always have projects that we don't have to ask for something, an exception or a variance. In this case, we don't have that situation. So we're hoping that that's a pretty streamlined process. And like I said, this is a great opportunity for us, and then hopefully to add some nice units to the neighborhood. So with that, yeah, I'm happy to open it up to questions that, Rocco from engineering, Jeff from the architect, and then myself as the developer builder, we're happy to, answer your questions.
Yeah, this is Charlie. One thing I noticed, not a lot of development on the rooftop, which would be probably the best view on these, and because that is a lower section of Grandview Avenue. Is there any thought of developing the roof a little bit more than what we're showing in these renderings?
So Jeff, go back, go to the one slide. Yeah, that's a good one. So when you say developing the rooftop, are you talking about the actual size of the outdoor area?
Yeah, not just a balcony. Like I can only see balconies. I'm talking about the very top of the building.
Yeah, so the depth of these units on the roof, Jeff, is we're gonna be like 42 to 44 feet deep, correct?
Correct, in this direction.
Okay, so that's not just a balcony, that's an actual outdoor living area. The dimension of that, the width of those on the ends is around 26 feet, and the outdoor area is going to be about 18 feet. That's a better view, thank you. So that's actually bigger than it looks in this photo. And then on the inside, we'll have a large area that's like a party room. People can do different things, a flex room. We'll also have an option to be able to do a bedroom up there with a bathroom. So if you want a bigger area to do what the people in the strip did,
Yeah, I've been to your brownstones in the strip. Very nice. I almost put a deposit. I live on Grandview right now, so.
Okay. Yeah, we're going to focus on that. Like I said, we're still in the concept, but different than bakery. If you notice on this one here, do you see how we have the option for some covered outdoor area, whereas it doesn't have it covered at all? So that's the first time in any of these projects that we're able to do that. So there'll actually be an area. So the areas that you can sit out on the deck and put your furniture, they're actually going to be bigger than the ones we have in the strip.
Okay.
Jay Newsom, you've got your hand raised. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have several questions. First of all, when you guys brought up for your drilling, you were actually showing the B1 sites next to the two other homes. And I live behind here on the B4 site. When your crew was drilling, the drill actually started to sink. So you didn't actually drill the B1, and TP1 is behind us. They actually had to do it with a backhoe. They couldn't do a drill. So can you explain to me what happened there and why you're representing it almost as though you had drilled the B1 and you haven't?
I'll defer to Rocco on that. Rocco, do you know what she's referring to?
I can talk to test pit 1. So the TP1 versus boring 1. A test pit is actually not a boring. So a boring is a vertical drill, and it's different. A test pit is a backhoe. So that's where we actually dig down and find the bottom of a hole and do what's called infiltration testing. So that is not a boring, a test pit. That's test pit 1 versus boring 1. So hopefully that answers your question. It's a
Well,
different
the boring one you didn't actually drill, B1.
boring
live-
number
I
1.
live literally, I'm right behind TP1. You didn't drill the B1.
Let me just double check, ma'am. So I have the geotech report in front of me, and we
Yeah,
did.
so we just so you know, we hired Pennsylvania Soil and Rock is
Correct.
the geotechnical firm that we hired for this. So they send all the results to PVE Engineering.
Correct. Boring 1 was drilled to 13.3 feet deep, or was terminated at the top of rock with a blow count of 50, which is considered, we can't move anymore after that. So that's actually terminated on solid rock at 13.5 feet, excuse me, 13.5 feet.
I
Is
mean,
the
I
depth
can
of-
go back out and check, like literally walk back out, but I was here the days you guys had the drill, and when you were on B4, the drill started to sink. Like the guys were trying to hold the drill together because it was sinking into the ground. And then you never came back with the drill on any of the properties behind us. The only time you came back were for TP2 and TP1, and those ones you did with the backhoe, as you're explaining. But B1 has never been drilled that I have seen. I've been
Well,
up there, I walk there every day, and there's nothing to show any drilling.
Well, I can answer this, Jane. Or is it, I'm sorry, your first name?
Jay,
Jay. So the borings that were done to this point are for like our development purposes and looking at the dirt, and like Rocco said, the storm infiltration. You have to do all that stuff for the DEP and things like that. Prior to us doing anything there, and over the next few months, we will come out and do borings. Now that we know the layout of where the townhomes are going to sit, we'll do additional borings of where they're going to sit. Because what happens is when we build these townhomes, we have to get a geotechnical letter and recommendation as to exactly what type of footer, if you have to do caissons, if you have to do a spread footer, or if you have to do a traditional footer. And in the projects we've done, it could be all 3 of those. Some of the area could be caisson, some could be spread footer, some could be a traditional footer. So we'll go out and we'll drill that. These were done at least preliminarily, because again, we're in our due diligence period with this. That's what we did. So you're going to see more drilling out there as far as that goes.
the only concern I have with that is that behind me, there are 3 sinkholes. And when you were digging, when they were out here digging B4, the actual drill started to sink.
Yeah,
There
so
were-
that's good. That's good to know. I appreciate that. We will talk to Pennsylvania Soil and Rock, and when they go back out there again, we'll definitely find out more about what's going on out there.
And I would question the B1 because honestly, I have not seen any mark to show that that was drilled to even check going down 13 feet.
Well,
Like
they charge us for it, so I'll definitely check into that for you.
Okay, and then another concern that's being popped up here is the 100-foot variance that you guys keep referencing. And as far as my understanding it with the Pittsburgh Public Realm, is that 100-foot reference, those buildings were already in there before that was made Grandview Public Realm. So those shouldn't technically affect that. If you made a change now, that would make a change to it. But the buildings that are there shouldn't technically affect that you should be able to go up to 100 foot. I mean, that's from the understanding of what I've been reading, and I may be wrong on that, but
Yeah, I mean, I think you
those
know.
were there before that realm was even decided upon.
So I think
I think-
Jeff referenced that because when we evaluated the site, we were looking at, should we do apartments? Should it be a condo building? And again, we've settled on townhomes. So the 100-foot thing, whether it's there or not, the point is moot because that's not what we're doing.
Well, and I understand that. I think that's just been a big issue for us because Betters had tried several times to put in condos back there and there's just not the support for it. Even
Yeah.
just trees that he has torn out, my yard and my neighbor's yard have now become swamps. We've lost the tree in our backyard because of all the extra runoff because there's 2 natural springs underneath there too.
Yeah, Chuck gave us some of the history. Obviously, he's the owner. That's who we're buying it from. So
You haven't purchased it from him yet? He still owns the property?
No, we have it under contract. He still owns it. Yes. Yep. So we have a contract on it. We're going to buy it once we know exactly what is going to happen with it. But the townhomes, like I said, the good thing is they're used by right. So it's not something that Chuck was going to propose.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I?
Hello. on, Jay, can you,
Yes, I'd like to ask a question.
can you hold on, please? Jay, could you lower your hand? And-
Well, I raised my hand, but I'm on Zoom, so
Okay.
two quick questions.
Somebody,
Can you tell what the main material is to build these? And what do you expect the price to be to buy one of these?
Okay, so just to clarify, when you ask with the main material, what do you mean?
Well, brick, stone,
So
hopefully
it'll
not
be,
wood. but-
no, it'll be a combination of brick, hardy plank. Hardy's a mason siding board. Those will be the two main materials on the exterior. And then the windows, we use Anderson windows in all of our projects. So these are the contemporary 400 Anderson style windows. So there's a lot of glass.
And I'm just circling right here, just as an example. So right now, this is proposed as brick. This is.
Yeah, and Jeff, that might change. So like that could be brick. But again, we're still, this is like Rev number 2. We'll go through revisions, probably 10 revisions before we get to the final point. So there might be more brick, but the main exterior materials are going to be the brick, the hardy plank, and then a lot of windows.
And
And
the
then your
approximate cost for one?
Yeah, so the Grandview, all the Grandview units, the ones that are on Grandview, will be over $1 million. We think they're going to range from, $1.2 million to probably some that are close to 2 million, maybe even some that go over 2 million. And then the ones that are off of Grandview, they'll be probably 800,000 to $1 million, $1.1 million.
Crazy. Thank you.
Yeah, and again, we did 52 townhomes at Bakery, and we sold those in 18 months. And there are 46 townhomes in the Strip District. Many of those are over $1 million. We sold those 46 in less than 2 years. This is 26 units. So this is a smaller project compared to the other two. So, I think our pricing, for the market, there's people already that have inquired on this project. So we feel pretty comfortable about where that is.
Thank you.
I'm going to call on people who've raised their hand. So Sharon Brady, could you ask your question?
Yeah, hello. Hi, good evening. My husband and I are looking at design. They're quite nice. We're just wondering, would you consider perhaps incorporating more bay windows in the front of the buildings? More arch windows, perhaps, just to break up the monotony a little bit with the windows? And on the roofs, perhaps, did you consider solar panels, a green roof, perhaps, or storm runoff roof? Because it seems to us that solar would be perfect. It's south exposure, is it not? I think. Thank you. That's it.
So to answer that, the window patterns, I think that's a good point. So we'll look at the window patterns. I'm not sure if we'll do arched windows. This photo or this rendering probably doesn't do justice to the dimension from the street, like how they recess and how they pull forward. But I think that comment, Jeff Campbell, we can look at that. We've never done any solar roofs. Jeff can look into that. That's certainly something we can look at, but we've not done that in the past. So we'll just have to see on that.
All right, Sharon, can you lower your hand? And Bill Conroy?
Yes, thank you.
William?
Hi, I'm William Conroy, Bill Conroy. Actually, I have the two houses next door to the 1600 block stretch there. And I like the layout in general. I like the fact that you're doing townhomes and the siting and everything. And I know you've said you're not doing any exceptions to the zoning. I just wanted to confirm for front and side setbacks, you're using 15 feet and 3 feet. Is that what you'll be using for the most part, or?
Yeah, Jeff, can you confirm that?
Yeah, I believe it's maybe a minimum 3 feet in some spots. I can check while we're meeting. Maybe I can check on that exact dimension. But
I think the answer would be, yeah, we're gonna make sure it's 15 feet, and then we'll make sure it's at least 3 on the side yard.
And the 15 feet, does that go from the curb, like where the curb meets the street, or from where the sidewalk meets the yard?
It goes from the property line. So the property line is roughly at the back of the sidewalk, but it does vary a little bit. So it's not, it's an imaginary line out there. It's not, and that's what we're coming back 15 feet from.
Okay. So you might be a little more than 15 feet back from the street in some places because of the sidewalk in there. Okay.
Correct.
And my biggest concern is the street trees. And I heard you saying that it's a city requirement to have street trees, but they are like, even for the buyers of your properties here, those trees are going to obstruct the view somewhat. I know you can go above the trees, and you have to be really careful about what kind of trees are planted there, because I've lived in a townhome development where they put little sticks in, and 20 years later, they were just tremendous trees that nobody really planned. So I personally, I would prefer not street trees, but some other kind of landscaping. Is there anything shorter that you could do, or?
I think that's good feedback. PVE Engineering, they have a registered landscape architect on staff that does the choosing of the plants with us, that will go through it. So I think what you said, I have a feeling that the city is going to require street trees. So we'll see. Let me ask.
What's the smallest tree you can get? Because even
Yeah,
a red bud is pretty big.
John Kamen's, he's our attorney. He just texted me that the city code, it is going to require street trees. So I think what you said is important. We'll make sure that we pick trees that as they mature over their lifetime, that they, they're not like monstrous.
Are they going to be 2-story tall trees though? Because most trees are at least 2 stories. It's just.
I don't know yet. We'll have to look into that.
Yeah, I mean, so, and I don't mind, like, trees in the back, they're great and everything, but those trees for my property, and I want to build a house there and have a view of the city. The townhomes are great, but the trees are going to take the view away. It's just
Yep, we'll make sure that we pick the appropriate tree for that.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. Could you lower your hand? Bob Shirko.
Just real quick on that side setback, we are using 6 feet as the dimension on that side.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, yes. It's a very interesting project, to be sure. I wonder, have you had any discussions with the city about improvements to the roadway, the sidewalks, the other side, railings, any of the other infrastructure in this part of Duquesne Heights? It seems like a good opportunity. Obviously, you're going to have to be doing a lot with buried cables, I'm guessing. Have you discussed any kind of partnership with the city for maybe have the city do some more extensive improvements to that part of the street?
We're just starting the city process now, so I think as we get into the planning commission, I think the things that you just mentioned will all be things that we discuss with them. In the other projects, like in the Strip District, we worked with the city on the passageways from the terminal building straight through to the river. That was something that was important to us. So the things you just mentioned, anything that will enhance the walkability, the atmosphere, the community type of things, we'll definitely talk to the city about ideas for that.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Please lower your hand. Jay, why don't you speak now, and then I'm going to start reading questions from chat.
Okay, so I've got a few more questions here. One of the main thing is, so if you're not going to have any front yards, I don't know if you've noticed, and if you look in your photos back to there, because of when they tore down the trees in Emerald View Park, Grandview has been washing out. It's actually no trucks sign on that area of Grandview Avenue, and I believe it is 4 weight limit. So that is kind of a concern to me if you're not going to have much in the front yard for absorption. Can you guys hear me?
Management question, Jay?
So I'm just at, my concern is with the front yards, you know, the stability with Grandview Avenue there, because there's a, I believe there's no trucks are allowed on the last corner, 1 through 9. And on the other side, there's literally nothing. It's just been washing out under Grandview Avenue. At one point in time, we could actually see the rebar underneath the street. It just, there's nothing holding it on the other street side. And what Emerald View Park even planted has been washed away.
Understood. And as far as the construction on our site, you know, it'll be germane and the water there. And I think you mentioned absorption as far as
Yeah.
water washing it out. So we're of course putting a lot more impervious surface down, which requires us to put in stormwater management. Our impervious surface will actually collect and store that water and meter it out over time. Our discharge points are through the curb cut on that particular side. That goes to Shaler. So there's a storm line that runs down Shaler Street, obviously goes down to, excuse me, goes all the way down to the west end. We're going to be discharging into that particular storm line. So really removing that opportunity for water to seep down through that grass now, and we'll be discharging it directly to Shaler Street. The benefit of that is we'll be putting in a detention system that's lined, so there's not going to be any type of infiltration or exfiltration there. That's our current plan and our request to the DEP.
And are you guys aware that there's natural springs running underneath there? Because that's why we get flooded.
It's interesting that natural springs would be up so high. Typically, we see that in a perched water condition. So when sometimes you have those soils are sometimes fill, and fill will have voids in it, and that water will kind of, you know, hang there for a long time and then discharge over time. I'm well aware of the springs in and around Mount Washington, but they typically happen on the sides or towards the back of where natural areas.
When we did the extension on our home,
Mhm.
it was something that was discovered. So that so I know that there is at least one natural spring there. And again, because that was a concern of mine, when we had the landslide on Greenleaf, we developed 3 sinkholes right behind my home.
Understood.
And the other concern that I have is I get the point of a retention tank, but are you going to do anything in the back for, like, say, the downpour we just had today? If there's nothing to catch that, if it's all just, you know, whatever runs down and gets in on the back end, it'll all just run into our yards. Is there going to be some sort of like almost gutter system or something set up
Absolutely.
at the back of them so that it'll catch, so that you're not driving into us?
Absolutely. On the rear there of our parking area, you can see a vertical curb. That'll be an asphalt wedge curb that will collect water and take it to an inlet, a catch basin, if you will.
Take it to the catch basin.
Correct. It'll be a series of catch basins that run up behind those units.
And what about for the back there? I see that there's trees drawn in, but a big concern is for these homes that are here. I know we've noticed it even with the ones on Seward Street with the new cars with the LED lights. Are you looking at building anything for like to give us privacy and to make sure that we don't have headlights going in and out of our yard and house all the time?
I think we do have a rather robust landscaping plan in mind back there. And there definitely are shrubs that would be planted along that side there. We do have shrubs kind of aligned in and out through those street trees. They're not necessarily shown there. That'll be low level, kind of that headlight view. They will be vegetated.
But with the gradation, unless you guys are going to build it back up there, even with shrubs, if you had it, somebody driving up to the back because it goes up, literally those headlights would probably be going into our second and first floor on a regular basis. So that's a big concern, that we just want to have something there to, you know, not have headlights in our house, because the way that the grade goes up, unless you guys are smoothing it out, I would say that the grade towards the garage end is actually even at our second floor level. So shrubs are not going to block it in the
I'm sorry,
grade.
which home are you? Which home are you?
I am right behind 2 and 3.
Okay.
There.
Yep. So we are going to be actually grading that. That gets raised. We'll be elevating that, and there will be a vegetated embankment there, vegetated berm there. It gets raised about 3-4 feet.
So there'll be a vegetative embankment, and then above that, behind that, there'll be like a retaining wall going up for the driveways.
We do not have a retaining wall at that location at this time.
Okay, because again, I'm just concerned, and I just want that with that grade going up, if you were up towards where that would be going into our second floor with LED lights.
Yeah, we'll look at the landscaping in the back there. I hear your comment, so we'll make sure we talk about that.
And would you guys be open to doing a community meeting, just like meeting at the church down there, just for it, especially the residents that are in the immediate area? There are many that weren't able to attend the Zoom or don't attend MWCDC meetings that really just wanted to be part of it and know what's going on.
Well, I think that's part of the process here. I think with Gordon, and this is the second time we've talked to Gordon, I think Gordon will be able to communicate it.
But the lack of communication between the MWCDC and the Duquesne Heights area.
Yeah, Gordon, I don't know if you could speak to that, Gordon.
Well, that's what I would want it out. Ask for it outside of Gordon and the MWCDC is what I'm asking.
I mean, what I would say is that the city has an RCO process, which is what we're going through. I think if there are specific questions that you have, and I know the city's taking notes on them, we're happy to go ahead and take those into account. And this is a collaborative process. There will be a planning commission hearing on it. There'll be other opportunities for comments on it to go forward.
And I understand that. I was just wondering if you would be willing to have a meeting with the community just to inform them, because there are many that are not participating with the MWCDC and have issues with them. So I would I'm not saying as a city process, I'm just saying as a developer moving into the area and doing work.
Yeah, I mean, what I would tell you is the short answer is probably no, because the city has the RCO process. We're happy to have small meetings if you want.
Yeah.
We're not going to go ahead.
Just for like the immediate.
We're not going to subvert the RCO process. We're not creating a new process. The city has a process that we're following. So I don't want to talk badly about a CDC or an RCO, and that's not the purpose of this meeting.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that there's an issue between the two. So the residents that aren't attending, I would just like it for the immediate residents that live next to the properties. That's all.
You've made your point. Thank you, Jay. If they choose to, they will communicate with you or us. And please lower your hand. Okay, I'm going to start reading the questions. So, and I'll read them all, even if they've been addressed to some extent. So Bob says, are you set on the basic design, or are you still considering 100 high buildings? You've already addressed that, but say it again.
Yeah, no, this is what is being submitted to the city.
Okay. Sharon says, would you consider incorporating the following? More bay windows. You've already addressed that to some extent.
Correct.
Okay. Ruth O says, what is the traffic impact on Shaler Street and Grandview Avenue?
With 26 units, it's a very small number of units. The traffic impact with this type of development should be minimal.
What about doing construction?
I mean, the construction.
City requires us to submit a construction management plan, which is reviewed by them and DOMI to ensure we're mitigating all impacts to the best of the degree on the community.
Okay, David says there was an overlook platform proposed for Grandview approximately opposite Shaler. Has this been considered, and how does it impact this development?
So Chuck Betters brought that up to me when Kevin Acklin was in the mayor's office. Kevin was very involved in that discussion, commitment, idea of putting an outlook there. I think when we start the city process, from my perspective, if there was a one of them added there, I think it would be great. It would be an amenity for the community there. I have no idea if the city would even entertain that at this point in time, and we haven't asked that question. So, but we will. We will, but I mean, being honest, I just don't have high hopes for that.
All right. Sharon, once again, she talked about arched windows, transom, solar panels, green roofs, and rainwater harvest.
Yep. Our architect took note of all that stuff.
Lisa says 100 feet high would be hideous and cast shadows for other longtime homeowners. Also, if you could coordinate with the city to bury the utility lines while everything will be torn up, that would be great.
So on the first part, then Lisa should be very excited that these are only 40 feet high. On the second part, of burying the utility lines. A lot of the utilities will be underground, but I think that there are utilities outside of our property. Rocco, are those Duquesne Light, or who is that?
Correct. That's both Duquesne Light and Comcast, or the cable provider in that area.
Yeah, I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, Rocco, I don't think they have any intention of burying those lines, right?
They typically do not.
Yeah.
No, and if they did, they probably would have done so before that street was reconstructed and paved.
Yep.
Rebecca asks, is this strictly zoned residential, or is there an opportunity for mixed use? A development that would include locally serving businesses like a coffee shop or a space for a farmer's market would be welcomed up here.
Yeah, this is zone residential, and the plan that you're looking at tonight is what will get submitted.
Karen B asked, is there any guesstimate on the range of sale prices for any of these townhomes? And you've provided that.
Yep.
What Sharon Rosa asks, what about the water runoff? This will be a lot of hard surface. Where will the water go?
So Rocco, I think, answered that earlier. There's a stormwater management plan with underground tanks, a whole system that will contain it. So there will not be runoff coming off of the site.
David says, why do you bring up 100-foot buildings if they are a moot point? What are you trying to say? That you can put up a 100-foot building if the community says we do not like your townhomes?
No, I think that was just part of the zoning overview that Jeff was doing, just to kind of say, here's what the zoning is in this area. All the projects we do, Jeff always does a zoning overview.
Sue says, is PWSA going to be transparent as far as the water and sewer lines? Amabel Street was dug up to replace the gas lines, and they discovered a sewer pipe that just ended, and there was waste in the holes. They said that it ran from Grandview. I wonder if they have some kind of map that shows where the sewer lines actually,
Yeah, so as a part of our PWSA water and sewer application, we've been required to actually camera the entirety of this line along the frontage of our property on both Grandview and Shaler, which we have done and completed. So we know where the taps are, we know how to best connect to it, and we are coordinating those connections with PWSA. Again, that's really along our frontage on Grandview and Shaler. We have very to little no encumbrances to attach to that sewer. It seems clean. There wasn't many areas that were at all impacted. So we're fairly confident that's going to be a fairly straightforward construction.
Wanda asks, what will be the square footage of each townhouse? Are the garages underneath?
So the square footages will range from 2,400, 2,500 square feet to 3,400, 3,500 square feet. All of the townhomes have a 2-car garage, and they're all on the first level. So there's a flex room and a garage. They're all rear loaded. You could see the individual driveways for each unit.
She also asks, is there any common green space?
No, I mean, there's common area. This will be run by an HOA. So the people that buy here will own their units, and then the rest of the area will be owned by the HOA. So side yards, areas behind the driveway, the landscaping, that'll all be part of the HOA. That'll be taken care of by the HOA. And that's common area that people can walk through.
Okay, Bob asks, do you anticipate road closures and detours?
Rocco, what do you think about that?
We'll try to minimize that as much as possible. The road network up there is fair. Rutledge, I know, is steep. So we'll try to minimize that as much as possible. Grandview Avenue, obviously, with single loaded, can sometimes be difficult, but ideally, we'll be minimizing any impacts there, road closure wise or otherwise. We will have to have an approved, what they call maintenance protection of traffic plan, which follows both the city and PennDOT guidelines to ensure safe traffic for any type of closure we have. So that'll be something we work through with the city, and they will have an opportunity to comment and review.
Jacques asks, will there be an HOA? You answered that. If so, what is projected monthly charge?
That's still very preliminary. I can just reference, like, the strip district is $350 a month. I would think this one will be similar, maybe $400 a month.
Okay, Bill Conroy asked, do you plan to bury the utility lines that currently exist on Grandview? I think, well, go ahead, address it.
No, I mean, that's up to the utility companies to do that.
Okay, David asks that, or says that the natural springs are from mine discharge. Annie asks for comments that stormwater management is huge, as well as buried electricity, and asks again, will there be a short shared courtyard? And then Emily agreed with Jay, there's been zero communication about something. Wanda asked, how many bedrooms in each unit?
3 to 4 bedrooms.
How many parking spaces for each unit?
Well, they're all 2-car garages, and then some of the units behind the driveways are long enough that you'd be able to park a car.
Jay asks, can you share the plans?
I think that this presentation, you're gonna get a copy of, Gordon, that we did tonight. As far as the engineered plans and all that kind of stuff, that's all through the city with the approvals. That's not something that gets shared with a public neighborhood group or things like that.
Right. Also, how long do you plan construction to take?
Yeah, that's a good question. From the time that we start the development work.
On the meeting tonight. Oh, they can't hear me. I have my mic off.
No, we can hear you. Gordon, do you want me to answer that question, or what would you like to do?
How long for construction?
Yeah, so on the how long for construction, from the time that we start the development work with the utilities and the grading and things, and then the units themselves, I would say probably like a 3-year period from start to finish.
Okay.
Maybe
Bill,
3.5.
Marty, we'll just clarify, that's not all at once. They'll go down and the buildings will go in phases.
Yeah, oh yeah, we'll release them, Gordon. Like what we'll do is, I don't know which side of the street we'll start with, but hypothetically, let's say we say phase 1, we'll release buildings 1 through 9. Okay. We typically do pre-sales. There's a good demand for this area, we expect. So those will all pre-sell. And then after we sell those, then we'll go and we'll say, all right, we're going to release 10 through 14 and 23 through 26, and then a 3rd phase. So we're going to do this in 3 phases. We did the strip district, we did in 3 phases. But again, we sold those very quickly. It was less than 2 years.
Okay, is somebody making some noise? Bill says he investigated burying utility lines a couple years ago with Duquesne Light, and he wants to we can talk with Bill. Just send me an email and let's go and talk about it.
Noted.
Jay says all buildings but one shown as reference were actually from Duquesne Heights. Okay. Emily asked, what is the project timeline? We addressed that. David says unit 21 and 22 will have a wonderful view of the big hole Craig Kotza dug. Are you concerned about what potential buyers will see there?
No, not right now. We're not concerned.
Jay says PennDOT considers Grandview as a secondary road. Will you try to take into account that it is more primary?
Rocco, I'm not sure I understand that question.
Well, it's a secondary road according to state recs or state specifications, but it is a primary road within the Duquesne Heights community.
We did it.
I think the design, the way that we designed this with minimizing the curb cuts, I think that respects the flow of Grandview, and in the future, after these are built, the traffic flow will continue to be consistent with what it is today.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Rather than having 11 curb cuts onto Grandview for individual homes, we have 1.
Yeah.
I think the big concern was just that when we've had any development on Grandview Avenue or any construction, the city tends to consider it, because it's technically a secondary street. When that gets shut down, it becomes very difficult. Traffic does get backed up because it really truly is the primary street used over here. It's really, so that was just my ask on that. I apologize. Just wanted to explain.
Okay. No, Rocco, I think will address that with his construction plans.
Correct.
Sue asks if there is a truck limit, how do you plan to bring the equipment and heavy machinery along Grandview Avenue for such a long time?
We'll find out what the truck limit is and address that.
Okay, how will you, Wanda says, how will you prevent residents from parking on the curb on Grandview? Where will their guests park?
We will not be in charge of what the residents do.
That's an HOA thing, okay? Bear with me, I'm trying to let Terry in. All right. Jay made a comment about communications. Giant asked, where is the project going to be staged?
It'll be so we'll like in the Strip and Bakery, these are tight sites. So if we're constructing 1 through 9, then that lot, the other vacant lots, will like work our way down, and then it gets tight on the last building. But we figure it out. I mean, it's building in the city. It's it's what we do.
Okay. Jay asked the plan for where you park your construction vehicles, and can you share this presentation, knowing that it's not final, and you said you would. Will Shaler Street be open during construction? That's from Patty.
I would envision it would be open. We would take any type of lane closures. Typically, we don't close the whole street. It would be a lane closure. Some of the utilities may need to be extended to Shaler Street. That'll all be a part of the construction management plan, which Domi takes very seriously.
Okay. Emily says the building are to be consistent with the character of the neighborhood. These look identical to the Strip District townhomes. How did you vet what is consistent with the neighborhood?
So we're still, like I had mentioned before, this is still conceptual. The Bakery units and the Strip District units, they are going to have a similar feel and design. And again, that's on purpose because they were very well received and popular with the buyers. I think the materials, Jeff Campbell from Rothschild, as we get into the detail, things like the color of the brick, the tint of the mortar, the color of the hardy, we'll do something that'll be consistent. Mount Washington has a wide range of, you've got some new construction townhomes that are, gray and white in nature. You've got all brick units. So there's a big variety. But I think this community of 26 homes, we're going to want it to have a very distinct, certain character, look and feel.
Hold on, David.
May I talk?
No, hold on, please. David asks, what's up with the houses? Oh, darn it, his chat. What's up with the house between 14 and 15?
That's owned by an out-of-town person. It's a rental for them. I know that Chuck Betters had contacted him. He had no interest in selling it. So like I said, this plan that you see, that house is staying.
Now, whoever's on the iPhone, please ask your question.
That's you. Yes. I don't want to throw cold water on things, but the idea of putting a lookout on this side of Grandview would be disastrous. The streets aren't wide enough, excuse me. Cars will be parked on sidewalks all over the place. You have George Washington and Gaia Soda up there at the top, and people, convene there and overlook the city. I just think that would not be a good idea for this neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. All right, folks, we've gone
Sorry.
through the chat.
Wait, you asked, I did have one more question that you didn't. I just wanted to know about delivery vehicles, because with the new townhomes on First and Republic, we have delivery vehicles that constantly are going for groceries, everything. Where are they going to park at? Because if they park on Grandview Avenue, they'll be blocking it and creating a blind spot. Will they be allowed to, will there be a special place for deliveries? Will they be allowed to use the private driveways?
I can tell you that the Strip District and Bakery are very similar in nature to this, and the delivery vehicles drive down the the private driveways behind the units. That's what they utilize. And then with the mail, there'll be a central, it's not on this drawing because we don't know where it will be, but there will be central mailbox units that people will walk to. There's Rocco, how many are in the strip? Do you know, did we do 2 or 3?
I believe that's 3, but I have to double check.
Yeah, and looking at this, the way these parcels are, I have a feeling we'll end up with 3 central mailbox areas, 1 for each phase. And again, the delivery vehicles, they'll be able to pull in. These private driveways are wide enough to do all that.
Yeah, and I think that was just the question, those, because the mail's not a big issue, but we get like Amazon delivery, FedEx, UPS, all those, and they just stop in the main street.
Yeah, they
So-
drive behind bakery and they drive behind the strip.
Well, I know in bakery, they actually had set up like a room with shelves at one point in time, I was told. And then it became an even bigger room for deliveries.
Yeah, that's for the apartments. That's not for the townhomes.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Marty, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Since this is still rather preliminary and we know you're going to go through many more iterations, are you open to making another presentation to the community like this one when things are much more finalized?
I don't know. I looking at the process, I don't know if that planning commission, because that's a public meeting, and like the gentleman that explained it, you're able to go on and make comments at the planning commission meeting and things like that. Gordon, I'd be happy to, when we get, and Jeff Campbell, I'm not sure if this is probably the easiest way to do this. When we get, designs, final designs, or Jeff, we're gonna have to come up with a planning commission presentation, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so maybe Gordon, what we do is when we get that presentation done, we get you a copy of that so that you know what the current thing is. This is what's going to be discussed at planning commission ahead of the meeting. And that way you can then take a look at it, look with your group of people and distribute it however you feel fit.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll jump in here quickly. So yeah, I think that the minimum requirement is this development activities meeting. City planning does strongly recommend ongoing engagement with the broader community, both Mount Washington CDC and kind of as a broader public space. So if there are significant changes or new details that do emerge, we do encourage that. There can be some instances in which it becomes required, but those are more rare. But we do encourage that if there are significant new developments in your plan.
Yeah, so we'll get a copy to Gordon on that. And then, like I said, if there is a change as things go on, we'll do that. As you can see from Jeff's first slide that kind of detailed where we are in the process. It's 26 townhomes. That's what's going to get submitted unless we find something out that would be, shocking. But I think we're far enough along that what you just said, there's going to be nothing that would be considered significant in the changes for this development. But Gordon, I'm happy to get you the presentation before we do see that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
Does anybody have any more questions? Oh, I see something in the chat. Bear with me. Annie B liked the questions. David says the Amazon drivers are going to have fun. Okay. There aren't questions. Anything else? Thomas, do you have any closing statement?
No, I think if there aren't any more questions.
Hello?
Just got a couple.
On the phone, can I say?
On the phone.
There's somebody on an iPhone who appears to say something.
Pre-construction, can you alter or perhaps take 2 units instead of 1?
No.
That was the quickest answer all evening.
I'm happy to oblige, Gordon.
All right, I got another chat. Annie B thinks it was very informative, and thanks everyone.
Great.
Hey, Gordon, Tom Ty, I have a question. When can we make this recording available to the community?
Sometime tomorrow. It takes many hours for my poor computer to, record it. But yeah, sometime tomorrow it should be available.
And will that be something that can be distributed through the e-blast, or is there a place where on Dropbox that people would be able to download that?
We can provide a link to it via, I believe we can put the link on Facebook, and if there's time for an e-blast or space for an e-blast, we can put a link on that also.
Thank you.
All right, folks. I found it interesting that some people chose not to attend. We will leave it at that. And we have a little bit of news upcoming, or in an e-blast that we sent out recently. We have a little calendar of events that are of things that are coming up. We have strategic plan meetings coming up. We have a community forum next month. I want to say it's on the 18th regarding traffic and mobility or alternative mobility on the Mount. A lot of presentations we hope from DOMI and maybe the Duquesne Incline and a couple other organizations. I'll repeat the strategic plans, which we encourage people to attend. And then, well, of course, we want you to attend everything. And then Party on the Mount is on September 24th. Put it on your calendar. It's happening, construction or no. And
Hey, Gordon, thank you very much.
oh,
I'm
yeah,
out of
Mark, you go right
I'm out
ahead.
of town, and I'm out of town, and I have to get to a dinner meeting. So,
Thank you very much for your presentation.
no, thank you. It was good talking to you again. Thanks.
Yeah, you, Jeff, Morocco, and
Yep.
John. Feel free to leave, and I'm going to be done in a minute, if not less. So, once again, with the strategic planning process, if you have any comments or ideas, send us an email, info@MWCDC. If you want information about what we've been doing so far, I can send it to you. And just keep a lookout. If you do not get our e-blasts and you want them, send me an email at info@mwcdc.org. It's really simple. And also, we do post things on Facebook. This presentation was posted on Facebook today. We have a 311 campaign for improving Grandview Avenue sidewalks going on, and we hope that you see that. And there was another posting today recently. Just so you know, there's a posting about lead-safe homes. Allegheny County has a lead-safe homes program. If that's a concern for you, something to take into account. And those are the kinds of things that we post on an ongoing basis. Oh, there's a new business program. Anybody who operates a business in Mount Washington and Duquesne Heights, there's an opportunity to participate in a survey with Carnegie Mellon University about your experiences with PLI. And I'll be posting that pretty soon. And I'm going to leave it at that. So thank you everybody for attending. Thank you for your questions. And please, and we will post when this development is going towards the Planning Commission and whoever else involved in the city government. And then you can make your comments there. I'll leave it at that. Thank you again. Take care. I am ending the meeting now, which will also end the recording.